Good morning. We here. Live. Slyy Report. It's your boy, Gxwd Ranks. And we about to give you the news on One Piece. Chapter 1101. Let's go. Thank you for joining us today. Without further ado, we're going to get right into the chapter. So, the chapter opens up with Kuma being in the Goa Kingdom on Mount Kobo 3 years ago. And he's watching a 16-year-old Luffy train. And Luffy at this moment is training his Gum battle axe. And he calls it his, I think this is what would likely be, when Luffy left the island to start his journey, the battle axe was probably his greatest move at that time. So, Luffy's practicing the battle axe, Kuma's watching him, and Kuma starts to reminisce on the time he was in the Goa Kingdom with Dragon. And in this flashback within a flashback, we see Kuma talking to Dragon, and he's like, "Hey Dragon, you seem real familiar with this island, and as I was stretching my legs walking around, I found a village over there on the outskirts, and I seen a young boy." And Dragon cuts him off and he says, "Hey, you keep talking? You might as well kill me yourself, man." And Kuma's confused by this at first, and then Dragon says the line that all Dragon fans really appreciate from him as a father, and it's, "A child is a parent's weak spot." And with this line, we know that he cares for Luffy, he knows that he loves Luffy, he does come in and check on Luffy, but with his position as the leader of the Revolutionary Army, being a part of Luffy's life is an extreme liability. And we already see how the government will use a child in order to blackmail and get what they want from a parent with Kuma. So Kuma understanding this, because at this point, I believe he's already has Bonnie. But if not, then he's just a very understanding individual. And he says, "You know what? Forget I said anything." We cut back to Kuma in the present flashback. And he's still watching Luffy. And Luffy delivers the battle axe. And then he's like, we don't see what Kuma's thinking. He just has a little blank thought bubble by him. But you could tell that Kuma's just observing and noticing and probably connecting some dots in his head. So, Kuma gets a call from the world government. And Luffy hears this call. So Kuma paws himself out of there real fast. Luffy turns around. He's looking. He doesn't see anybody. But he did feel a presence. And it did tend to chill up his spine. And he thinks that there is a beast out there that he's yet to defeat. So he's going to spend the next year before he leaves the island defeating every beast on that island, looking for the presence that he felt just now. So that ends the Luffy section of the chapter. But this section actually does a lot for Kuma's character and things that we've seen him do throughout the series. And also, I think it heavily implies that Kuma knew who Luffy was. Based off his knowledge of the Sun God Nika and based off what he's seen of Luffy, I believe he believes that Luffy is the Sun God Nika, or at least the reincarnation of the Sun God Nika. So, that ends that part of the chapter. We didn't cut to the open ocean. We see Kuma executing the orders that he was given by the world government. And it's not too much consequence what he's doing per se, but as he's doing that, we see him begin to narrate a letter to Bonnie, telling her how he loves her, telling her about how he's kind of busy, he's getting more and more famous on the seas, but most important part of that letter is that he loves her and that he wants her to understand and know that. So, we cut away from him writing his letter, smiling, having a good time, just reminiscing, thinking about his daughter. And we cut over to the Sorbet Kingdom where we see Bonnie begging, asking anybody who will listen if there is a letter that has come from her father. And now this is important for another reason, because this says how low the government will go when it comes to what they have enforced or what they have imposed upon others. So, we cut there. Bonnie's asking for a letter. And we see Gyo the fisherman and Connie, they're talking to her and they're saying maybe the letters just haven't come. Maybe he's busy, or maybe there's a problem with the news coup. And then Bonnie's like, no, he said he'd write. Why isn't there a letter? And this is where Connie chimes in and she says, well, letters have their own journey to go on, so I'm sure one will come eventually. And this sort of reassures Barney for a time. We then cut to outside of the church where the news crew has delivered the news and Kuma's letter. We see Alpha receive this, and she begins to read the letter, and then she hands the newspaper to one other agent and tells him to go put it in the mailbox. We see Barney get the mail. She's excited. Is there a letter? Nope, just the news. Alpha has been reading each letter that Kuma sends, noting that he is sending 10 letters a month, and she is ripping up, tearing up, and throwing away each and every letter. After she reads it and is disgusted by the love that Kuma has for his daughter. This is a vile, evil woman. Because why would you do that to this girl? Why would you make this girl suffer like this? I understand the agreement is he will not see his daughter. He will not contact his daughter. But he's not trying to see her. He's just trying to give her hope. Let her know that he loves her. His fate is sealed. Don't get me started on this. Do not get me started on this, because this part of the chapter really made me hot. But I'm going to do my best to deliver the news impartially. So, Alpha's tearing up the letters. Bonnie's not getting no letters. And this is making Bonnie quite sad. Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Well, since you're here, let me take some time to talk to you about two of my favorite things in this world. Cranberry juice and Charlie's Very Berry. It's a quality snack. Hydrate yourself. Give in to your sweet tooth. Just a word from me. And the truly heartbreaking thing about this letter situation, before I move on, is the fact that we see the last part of the letter that Alpha just ripped up. And Kuma says to Barney, one last thing. I know you're probably tired of me telling you this, but I love you, Barney, with all my heart. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And she is not receiving this love. Really frustrating. But we must continue. We cut back to Bonnie inside the church, and she's buffed herself up and she's ready to fight Gyogo as a sparring session. Maybe to take out some frustrations, but also to train. Yo-Yo, to his credit, would rather play Jenga. But Bonnie insists on sparring. So as they spar, we see Alpha open the doors to the church and she says, hey, it's time for your medicine. And then we cut to a close-up of Alpha's face and she seems confused. Then we cut back to Bonnie and Gyo-Gyo, and Bonnie's back in her small child form. Gyo-Gyo's laid out on the ground and Bonnie's just sitting on top of him. And Alpha says to herself, she's like, I swear I just saw Bonnie be huge just now, but maybe I'm mistaken. So as she's coming to give Bonnie this bitter tasting medicine, Bonnie's like, ew, I don't like it. Can't you get something that tastes better or something better? And Alpha's like, out loud, no, this is important medicine. The taste is how you know it's working. But in her head, she's like, please, this is just a lemon flavored placebo, and you gonna keep taking it as long as I give it to you. So, Alpha, not a good person. Yo-Yo and Connie are off to the side, and they're having like a secret whisper / telepathy conversation. And Yo-Yo's asking her, like, why are we keeping Bonnie's powers a secret? And Connie replies with the simple expression, a talented hawk always hides her claws. You gotta keep some stuff close to the chest, you feel me? Especially when you're dealing with some shady folk. So, shout out to Connie. She's proven she's a real one. And she will further prove it later on in this chapter. But we have to get there first, so let us continue with this report. We then cut to what is now present day Egghead. But at the time, it's still just a marine lab. Vegapunk's building it up, and he's making it look more like the Egghead that we know today. So we're outside and we see somebody say, "Brilliant, doctor, that's amazing, you've done it." Then we cut inside and we see it's the clone Slyy. So at this point, 3 years ago, clone Slyy has been made. She's a whole person and she's in the lab with Vegapunk. Vegapunk, to his credit at this point, has made half of Egglet, half of what you see on half of what you see on the Egghead Island. I'm just gonna keep referring to it as Egghead. Half of what you see as Egghead is holographic. He's lopped off the top part of his head. He's put the apple there with the antenna to connect to Punk Records. And now he says to Slyy, all we have to do is raise the brain and the lab with stratoclouds or island clouds. So he's getting Egghead to where he wants it to be. He doesn't have the satellites yet, but he has lopped off the top part of his head and replaced it with the apple top. So Kuma is also there, and Slyy asks Kuma, well, I wonder who has the more checkered fate. You, a human who's about to lose his sense of individuality and sense of self, or me, a clone who might not have one. And Vegapunk says, hey, stop talking like that. I've told you, you're just as human as the rest of us. And this is a good point for Vegapunk because he sees humanity, he sees the humanity in every person. Clone, robot, cyborg, whatever, what have you. Vegapunk values life, and this is what bonds him and Kuma together. At this point, Kuma and Vegapunk begin talking, and Kuma's asking Vegapunk what can he expect when his personality is completely gone. And Vegapunk replies with a query, if you will. He says, even though you're known as an obedient warlord now, what would you do if they ordered you to kill a child? And Kuma doesn't respond, and his non-response is enough of an answer. So Vegapunk says, yeah, that's what I thought. But once this process is complete, all humanity or sense of sympathy or apathy will be gone from you. Anything that would stop you from completing said order will be non-existent. But he does say that won't happen until the final steps of the process, which should take about a year. So up until then, Kuma will retain as much of his personality as possible. And this is a personal Vegapunk promise. To which Kuma replies, okay, cool, whatever. And he begins to write another letter to Bonnie. And Vegapunk asks, you're writing another letter? And Kuma's like, yeah, I want Bonnie to get a whole lifetime worth of love from these letters and from me that she's not going to get once I'm fully gone. And I want her to have that all within this year. I want to make sure she knows that her father loves her for a lifetime with these letters that I'm writing. And Slyy says, oh, that's so sweet. And Vegapunk's like, oh, that's cool. And then we cut back outside and we hear Kuma probably talking to Vegapunk and Slyy about how Bonnie's about to be 9. Her birthday's coming up and wondering if she's gotten bigger, if she's changed any. And with this, we end this part of the chapter. We didn't cut back to Sorbet Kingdom where all of the elders and all the people who've helped raise Barney and who are close with Kuma on that side of the island have come to the church to throw Bonnie a birthday party. They've made pizza for her. Well, Connie specifically has made a special pizza for her, and they're just having a good time, enjoying themselves, celebrating this girl's 9th birthday. And at the end of the festivities, when everybody's gone to sleep, Bonnie goes and checks for another letter from her father. She does not get it, and at this point, she begins to cry. And she begins to say to herself, Daddy, you promised me you'd write. I'm 9 years old now, and I still have nothing. And she just lets the sadness take her. And it's truly sad. Because all this little girl wants is a letter from her father. And these people will not let her get one. Truly shameful. We then cut to the revolutionary base where they're getting an announcement that Kuma has just saved another battalion. He came out of nowhere, ended the battle, and then disappeared without saying a word. We see Sabo's reaction to this. He doesn't have much to say, but he seems to have a concerned look on his face. Then we cut to Dragon, and Dragon says this. Let him be. I'm sure he has a valid reason for keeping us in the dark. And this is another good line from Dragon, because nobody would understand why Kuma is doing the things he's doing better than Dragon. Dragon knows. He probably doesn't know, but he probably has an inkling of what might have happened. He sent Kuma to Vegapunk. Now Kuma is a warlord. Kuma's silent. He's keeping to himself. He might have the closest of an idea to why Kuma is behaving this way. So he's like, leave him alone. He has his reasons. And this is another W for Dragon for me, because it lets me know he has the emotional intelligence to understand that this has something to do with Kuma's daughter. And with this, we cut back to Sorbet for the final section of this chapter. Bonnie is fully healed. She's ready to go outside. She's ready to be a part of the world. And Alpha's like, no, I refuse. I forbid you to go outside until you're 10 years old. Now, Bonnie takes issue with this because she was told by Vegapunk that she would be better in a year. And it's been a year. But Alpha is under order from the government to keep her there. So after Alpha and Bonnie have this argument, this tete-a-tete, and she leaves, Queen Connie comes around and she starts telling people, hey, Alpha and the others, they're government agents. One of them let it slip while they was drinking last night. I don't know why they trying to keep this perfectly healthy child here. And also, I think it's suspicious that Kuma hasn't sent a letter yet. I don't think that's the type of person Kuma is. Another example of Connie being a W. W man's Connie. So Connie turns to Bonnie and she's like, I've already made arrangements. I have a plan. We getting you out of here. She's charged Gyo and the other strong fishermen that are stronger than your average person on the island. You know what I'm saying? They were able to get through the first half of the Grand Line and get Bonnie all the way up until she was able to get to the New World. And then Bonnie was in the New World by herself. So, they have a plan. Connie's going to switch places with Bonnie and allow Bonnie to leave the church, disguised as her. And we see this happening. We see Bonnie talking to Alpha as Connie, saying, I'm going back to the palace. And she's walking outside. And as she's walking outside, we see an inner monologue of Bonnie talking about how the grass and the dirt and the sun just look all beautiful and good and nice. How this is the first time in her lifetime that she's ever been able to be out in the sun that she can remember. And she's just enjoying herself, making her way down to the shipyard. We see her get there and we see her welcomed by Yo-Yo, Potato, and Tots. These are their names. And they have made the ship look like a pizza for Bonnie, so she's not stuck on a boring ship while she's out looking and searching for her father. So, cut back to the church. Alpha comes in and she's looking for Bonnie. And she sees Queen Connie there disguised as Bonnie in her old age. And she's like, I'm Bonnie. And Alpha's like, you lying old prunes. You tried it. So, Alpha sprints out the church. She's headed toward the ocean. She's headed toward the coast. She starts using Geppo. She's trying to get there. At this point, Bonnie and the others have sailed, but they're not too far off from the island. And we see Alpha and she's coming in hot. She's like, yeah, no more games. I'm about to put you in the hurt locker. And you gonna be under lock and key till I say you could go. And everybody's like, oh no. But Bonnie starts to have a memory of a time she was talking with her father. And she asked him, Dad, what does the sun god look like? What does Nika look like? And he says to her, I don't really know, Bonnie, but they say that his body is made of rubber. And he fights with a freedom that no other person has, bringing joy to those around him. And we see Bonnie leap into action. She activates her distorted future technique and says, give me a Nika-like future. And then we see Bonnie's arm grow to gear third proportions. looking like a pre-time skip Ennie's Lobby beat down Rob Lucci fist. And she connects with Alpha with the strength of liberation to free herself. And as she does this, we see the narrator box come up saying, and so this humble fishing vessel would become a pirate ship, infamous along the likes of Luffy and the rest of the worst generation. And that, my friends, is the end of this chapter. Thank you for joining us today on the Slyy Report. We try our best to give you the most impartial and detailed, dedicated news on these One Piece chapters that we can. Thank you again for joining us. I am your host, Gxwd Rings. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.